All right, here we are. So thanks for joining. This is Chad at Lincoln Electric Cutting Systems. Today we're going to be going over our Clipart tutorial. This tutorial is the one that I train in my 2-day CAD training class here in beautiful Reno, Nevada. What we're going to do today is bring in a piece of Clipart. Clipart is actually available on our website to download, so you can go through the same steps. There's going to be some troubleshooting we are going to be doing with this Clipart too, which is going to be pretty helpful because obviously everybody gets perfect Clipart from everybody that doesn't have any issues or any problems, and it cuts out beautifully every single time. So in the off chance that happens, we'll at least kind of understand, and we'll kind of go over a little bit on how to overcome some of these difficulties with Clipart that is generated from a third-party application. So how we go about doing this is we're going to go to File, and I'm going to Import, and I'm going to go to my desktop and find my mountains.dxf piece of Clipart. I'm going to press Import, and as we can see, the upper left-hand corner of our Clipart is going to be represented in our cursor. Now, we do not want to left-click and drag and drop a square because it will change the proportions of the Clipart itself. So all we need to do is just left-click anywhere in the screen, and it will bring up our DXF Import Options screen. In this screen itself, there's a few little things in here that we're going to kind of go over, but the rest of it is mainly going to be left at default. Obviously, if we work in inches, millimeters, or centimeters, we can actually bring in the Clipart in any of those if we wanted to do millimeters, centimeters, or inches. Polyarcs or polygons, if we are going to be editing this a little bit more extensively, this will have a little bit of an effect. But right now, we're just going to leave it as a default of polygons. And close shapes and remove duplicates. These options allow us to eliminate some steps on the back end inside of our CAD. If you're used to getting artwork from AutoCAD or Illustrator or any of the other CorelDRAW, the vector programs, we might want to just go ahead and select close shapes and remove duplicates. We do have a little bit of a tolerance that we can put into the closed shapes. If you are getting broken lines, or instead of doing a lot of node editing, we can go ahead and add a little bit of tolerance to those items there. So I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Now, as we can see, here is the piece of Clipart that was brought in with the closed shapes and remove duplicates. We noticed as this was coming in that it immediately did an arrange and make path. And the reason why I know that it did that is because the inside features have dropped out, and it just shows us the actual mountains and the way that this thing is set up right now. The other thing that I'm noticing is that it came in a gray color. Most Clipart coming out of third-party softwares will have a different color from what is normally going to be set with this item. So I can see that by over at the right-hand side, I can see that the gray color is there. I can see also at the top that it's set as the P2 up at the top. And then down at the bottom where my color palette is actually at, the P2 is here, and it is gray. Now, I want to make sure that this is going to be my black color because when I edit in my CAD, black is usually the default color that is brought in. Now, being that we want to add some items to this, if I had a black color or a different color item from what's generated, is that it will not want to, you wouldn't be able to do really anything with it. So if I wanted to just go to my basic Weld Tool and put these items together, as we can see with just that, is that it doesn't treat it correctly. It doesn't know what to do with that extra color versus the other color. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that everything that we generate is going to be in the same color. So I'm going to go ahead and select my mountains, and then I'm going to come down here to my P4, and I'm going to left click and then right click. And as we can see, that color is all goes to the black color that we generated. So now that we have the color situation handled, I'm going to go ahead and size up my Clipart here. I'm going to make sure that my proportional scaling lock is locked. And I'm going to make this guy 12 inches wide. I'm going to press enter. And it proportionately scales up our mountains. Now, being that this is a welcome sign, or it's a welcome sign, because that's what I want to generate it out of my mountains, I'm going to go to my text tool, and I'm going to select my very first text compose, and I'm going to put my cursor where I'm going to want to put my welcome at. So I'll select right underneath the Clipart, and now I'm going to go up to my font detective up in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to choose a outdoorsy font. Now, what an outdoorsy font to you compared to what an outdoorsy font is to me might be a little bit different, but I'm going to find something that looks relatively outdoorsy. Let me see. I think I might I'll choose one of my personal favorites, which is Latin wide. So I'll select Latin wide. And I just want to verify that, being that I'm doing welcome, I want to see what that is going to look like. So what am I doing here? That again. Latin wide. I'll press select. Now I can go ahead and type out what that welcome is going to be. So I am going to use all caps, and I'm going to just go ahead and press welcome. Now we have our text laid out kind of where we want it. I'm going to go over to my select tool, and I'm going to size it up a little bit so I can get kind of a better idea of how much space my welcome is actually going to generate. And I'm going to put it into about the location where I want that welcome to be. So I'll just move it around a little bit, and I'll make it a little bit bigger. So that's about where I want it to be. So I'm going to need to generate a blob that will kind of go along with this design. So my welcome will drop out of that blob, and it will go along with the rest of my mountain. So instead of just generating just a rectangle, because that would be kind of bland for my design, being that it's these mountainous, lovely mountains, I'm going to go to my Arc Edit tool, and I'm going to use this tool to generate my blob that I need. Now, it will probably make it a little bit easier to see how this is generated by taking off Show Fill. So go to View and uncheck Show Fill, and we can see just the line drawing of it. Now, it takes a little bit of practice to get this Arc Edit tool to function properly. So I'll explain it, and it will probably take a little bit of practice, but I'll explain how it works. So when you left click, it generates this line. Now the line is telling you where that line is going to be, and then when I left click again, I'm going to hold down the left mouse button when I do my last left click, and then you can move the mouse up and down to generate that arc. And then when you release the left mouse button, it will go back to just being a straight line. Now, it takes a little bit of, it's a little bit savvy to get it to produce and to work properly, but you want to make sure that instead of just doing left click to left click, that your secondary click is a left click and hold, and then you can get the actual arc to produce. Now, when you are generating shapes, you want to make sure that you end on the very first one that you generate, or it will not turn to a solid color, which means that the item is broken. So you want to keep that in mind. So I'm going to go back to my Arc Edit tool, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a couple pieces inside my design, and then I can pop out of my design and then give it a little bit of a shape coming in and out and around to make it kind of look like this design flows with the rest of the design itself. Keep in mind that we can alter this blob or whatever shape you choose to make after the fact, but the whole ticket is to make sure that you come back to the original spot that you started out with, and we can, once we're done with our shape, we can go ahead and press apply. And how I know that my shape is solid and it is closed is I can go to view and put back show fill, and we can see that I have a solid shape out of what I just generated. Now, if I need to alter that shape in any way, shape, or form, I can go ahead and double-click it, and it will bring me back into scary node edit mode. And we can come in and we can make our alterations to this, and we can kind of get it a little bit better to make it so the design actually flows in a little bit. We can also add nodes to this by just holding the cursor over. As we can see, it turns into a hand over the line, and we can change the arc of those items. Or if I need to change the node, I can go ahead and press A on the keyboard, and it will add a node wherever the location of your cursor is, and you can redefine the shape to make it so it flows a little bit better. So once you kind of play around with your design a little bit and how you want it to flow, we'll just go ahead and click apply. Our item is already selected. I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to select the rest of my mountains, and I'm going to go over to our Weld tool and do a basic weld. Now, that position and that blob that we just generated is now a part of our whole entire design. Now I can come over here and select, take off show fill, and select the text. And once we're done altering the text or making any changes we want to make to the text, we're going to go up to Arrange, and we're going to do Text to Graphics. And what this does is this makes it so it's no longer a piece of text, that it is now a shape. And so in order to do any kind of alterations to this text after the fact is that you would have to do an undo or regenerate the text. So if you are a misspeller or if you want to choose a different font, then you would want to do that prior to doing this text to graphics. So once we do text to graphics, we can now edit each and every single one of these like it was a shape. So now I can just do a select all, which is Control A, and go to Arrange, and then Make Path. Now we can see, once we do the View and Show Fill, we can see that our welcome shows up nice and neat in the shape that we generated. As we all know, or some of us may not, is that we have the inside of this O that is floating, and so we're going to have to generate a bridge for the O in order for it to maintain that design. So being that the text that I chose kind of works with just a square, then I can go over to my rectangle tool and generate a rectangle that is going to be 0.2 wide, and it's going to be ½ inch tall. Then I will select my tool and then move it up to make it so it is going to be into position. And I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to kind of put it into a little bit better position, so it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. And then once I have my bridge in place, I'm going to do a Control-A for Select All. And I'm going to go over to my Weld Tool, and I'm going to do a basic weld and weld that piece into place. Looks nice. So now I have my text, I have my blob, and I'm pretty ready to go ahead and get my toolpath generated. So since I have my size, which right now it's a little bit over 12 inches, which is fine with me. I'm actually going to shrink it down to 12 exactly. I'm ready to generate my toolpath. So I'll select my item. I'm going to go to Machine, Create Toolpath, then I'm going to create a Mail toolpath. I'm going to skip past templates because we do not use them. I'm going to go to Basic Cut. I'm on Plasma. I want to make sure that I'm set to climbing, and then I'm going to put in 100 for my feed rate. Now I'm going to go to Lead In, Lead Out, and I'm going to select a lead in. I'm going to select a arc lead in, and I'm going to change my arc lead in to be 0.1. I'm going to adjust my start point, and I'm going to put it at the middle of my longest segment. So where it will actually locate my lead-ins will be inside of an area instead of putting it into a corner. In some designs, this will be a better choice because, as we all know, or maybe some of us don't, is that when you generate a lead-in, most of the time it will generate right into a corner, so you don't really get solid, decent corners. Well, if you adjust the start point and go to middle longest segment, it will put it in the inside, and so it will stay away from the corners. Well, let's see what this will do for our design. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Uh-oh, what does that mean? So this lead-in, lead-out calculation is exactly that. This paragraph that it's telling you is pretty much there's not enough space within certain designs to put in a lead-in. Sometimes what this error is going to be telling you is that because of the curve correction that is generated with our toolpath, that it cannot find an area to put that lead in, or what it will do is it will not even include a toolpath. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK on this. Now, as we can see, the lead-ins were generated, and where they were put is in nice little places inside of our welcome. So I'm pretty happy with those results. But as we can see with this design, being that there is some smaller details and some fun details inside of here, that there are some areas that didn't generate a lead-in, or we would get lead-ins like this, to where the lead-in is technically going inside of the toolpath that it generated. Now we can adjust where these lead-ins are put and after the fact. This one here wouldn't be one. As we can see, this little guy is going to cut out. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to Show Toolpath Only. Now when I go to Show Toolpath Only, this is the toolpath that the machine is going to follow. But as we can see, our main culprit of our problem is, if we remember what this looks like, is that this detail here that is signifying the tree is no longer showing up. As we can tell, these are the toolpaths that it generated. So what happened is that because of the curve correction of the plasma itself, it overlapped itself, so it dropped out the toolpath and left you with two little guys here. Now, depending on who this is for and what your end game is on this, that detail is relatively important, but it didn't generate a toolpath. Well, there's a way that we can actually fix that to make it so we could cut this piece as a different toolpath and then generate the rest of this how we see fit. So I'm going to do a Control-V for undo, and I'm going to go back to View and Show Toolpath, and here's our design here. Now, for me to fix this, there was a few areas that we can do this to. So I'm going to do a Arrange, and I'm going to Break Path. And now all of this is all one individual piece. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to deselect my little squiggly line next to my tree. Now, I want to individualize that because I want that to get an online toolpath instead of getting a male or a female toolpath from the rest of this design. So since I have that line no longer selected, as we can see here, then I can do an arrange make path on the rest of this stuff, which if we do a show fill, we can see that that squiggly line does not and is not represented in this design anymore. Now I can come over, just select this squiggly line here, and I'm going to do a machine. I'm going to create a toolpath, and instead of a male toolpath or a female toolpath, I'm going to create an online toolpath. Now, an online toolpath just follows the line regardless. It doesn't take into account kerf compensation or any of that. But I still have to give it the proper settings for that. So I'm going to go to Basic Cut. I'm doing it as a plasma. I'm going to go to Climbing, and I'm going to give it a feed rate of 100. Now, since it is an online toolpath, it doesn't get a lead in or a lead out. And I'm going to press OK. So I don't have tool diameter on. So here's our online toolpath that it generated. Now I can select the rest of my design, and I'm going to give it a machine, create toolpath, and I'm going to create a male toolpath. Skip to Basic Cut. I'm going to give the feed rate 100, which it saved the settings from last time. We're climbing. I'm going to go back to lead in, lead out. And I'm still going to give it an arc lead in, and I'm going to leave these settings here because I want to change up the way where some of those lead ins are in the design, but I like where it put the lead in the welcome. Press OK. Now this error is still going to show up. The reason being is that some of these smaller details in here still are not getting a lead in. Now, being that this is not a precision part, and I'm okay with the way that this design cuts, then I don't need to really worry about some of these pieces of this design being too particular about where the lead-in is at versus having one. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to come in here and move around some of these lead-ins to make sure that we're not overlapping themselves like this one right here. So all I need to do is I'm going to off-click and then double-click where my toolpath is, and then I can move around where some of these lead-ins are at to make sure that we're getting proper penetration with the lead-in, but we're not overlapping any other toolpath. So I think this one I'm going to eliminate totally. Now, if you wanted to completely move the position of a lead-in, we do have a button that you can press that can alter where the positioning of the lead-in is at, and it's up here at the top, and it looks like a router bit, and it says lead-in, lead-out when you roll over it. So if I select that, we can see a red cross go in between where the nodes are at. So if I find a location where I want it, I can go ahead and just press it. It will regenerate this error because it has to recalculate the whole entire design where the lead-in is at, and I can click OK. As we can see, it put the lead-in over here instead of over here. So I'm going to skip through here and check that out, make sure that all of these are in decent position, and if not, I will go ahead and change that. Once you're done with the node edit, we're going to go ahead and click Apply, and that will be our new toolpath. Now, since we did a different toolpath, and then the rest of this is all a male-female toolpath, I will have to sequence these toolpaths in order for them to cut correctly. So how I do that is I select everything, Control A, or you could draw a box around it, and go to Layout, Sequence, and then Start Sequence by List. Now what this list shows you is it shows you your drawing, and it also shows you the tool itself. So I'm going to select Tool Path only, because that's really all I need to worry about. As we can see, once you have this item selected, it shows you in the design where that is selected. And we want to make sure that this item here is sent to front. Now, if this was backwards, then all you need to do is use these buttons over on the right, have your item selected, and you can move these into whatever position that you want. But we want to make sure that our online toolpath here does a cut first, and then the rest of the design follows in after. So once these are sequenced properly, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to do a Control A for Select All, and I'm going to move this down to my 0, 0 position. As we can see. And now I'm going to generate the G-code out of CAD for our program to run it. So once I have everything selected, I made sure that it's at my 0, 0 location based on my lower left-hand corner reference point. And then I'm going to go to Machine, and then Output. It brings us into our cut screen. Right now my post is set to AccuMove Imperial because this is designed to run and set up for our VMD system that runs AccuMove. So I'm going to generate my G-code by pressing on the calculator in the cut toolbox. Once I left click it, it will generate the toolpath or generate the G-code for those toolpaths. And we can see over here on the right-hand side that we've got a bunch of G-code generated for this design with a feed rate of 100. Now I want to save that, so I'm going to go to my scissors on the cut toolbox over at the right-hand side. I'm going to press that, and then it will give me an area where I want to save this. So I'm going to go to my cut file. Now I'm going to save this as Mountain. GM, which is the file format for the AccuMove system. I'm going to go ahead and press Save. And once that's done and saved, I'm going to close my output control. And now I can go to File and do a regular Save As. And we'll also save that as my Mountain, wherever I save the other file. Right here. Now, the CDL format file or EDU format file can be altered at any point in time. So coming back over and altering this file, if you wanted to make it larger, you wanted to make any kind of alterations to it, then you would want to make sure that you open up the CDL format or the EDU format file and not open up your G-code or your cut file, just to make sure that all the proportions and all the scaling is correct. Click Save, and voila, you are done with a piece of clip art that has been altered past the clip art. We added a little bit of text, and then when you go to your machine to cut this out, it will come over and cut this online toolpath first, which will keep the design fluid, because now it just won't be a squiggly line over here. Everyone will now know it's a pine tree. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Good deal.
Chad, I have a question.
Sure.
I posted it online on the chat thing, but for the online path, does that still need to be a closed path versus just a single line for it to generate proper G-code?
No, absolutely, and that is a great question. You can generate straight lines, and you would use the online toolpath instead of using a male or female toolpath instead. So if you have some fold lines or some other details, or I know there's a lot of clip art out there that does have just straight lines that aren't actual shapes, then you would want to separate those from your design and select them and do an online toolpath for those items. If you've kind of played around with it a little bit, you will kind of notice that if you do a select all on something that does have those straight lines, that it will create some real funky toolpaths. That is because the software doesn't know where to put the curve correction and the lead-ins if you select a male or a female toolpath. That's why you want to separate them away from the rest of your design and do an online toolpath instead of doing male-female on those.
That helps me a lot. Thanks.
No problem. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of clip art from other locations just so I can play around with it, and I'm noticing that there's a few places that are generating a straight line version of their toolpath or of their clip art versus having a shape. And I can't remember where I got them from right off the top of my head, but it doesn't mean that you should always do the shape, but just make sure that if you do have straight lines, to make that they're separated out from everything else. So you would just select that all the straight lines and then arrange make path on those, and then arrange make path on all the other ones. And then you could do an online for the straights and then a male-female for the other shapes.
Dean, can someone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering, there was kind of confusion at the beginning of this, and I couldn't figure out how to get the audio until I realized I had to do this over the phone. But will this tutorial be shown some other time so I can catch the first part of this tutorial?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we get done with this, it will be posted to our website where the webinar's link was at originally. So it's gonna take probably about a week. We got to process it, but it will be available again. So you'll catch all of it.
Yeah, because I bought a book from you guys about with Clipart and that, and I realized that I have to do a lot of bridging in that, and I'm just learning how to do all this. So this was a great tutorial. I'm just anxious to see it again. So
sure,
thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, it will be available.
Great, thank you.
All right, no problem. Well, if anybody has any questions, you can get a hold of us, 775-673-2200, or you can email to support@torchmate.com, and we'll get you guys set up. So if you guys have any other questions or need any other information, feel free to get a hold of us, and we'll be able to assist as much as we can.
Chad, one quick question. Where's the file online?
The file, this mountains image is on torchmate.com/webinars, and I believe it says clip art for this webinar or something like that.
Great. Thanks a lot. It was great.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, if you need any more information, just go ahead and shoot me an email at support@torchmate.com, and I will help you as much as I can.
Have a good day.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for your time.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks.
Bye.